What's up, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Leadoff Show. This has first time back in a while. Sorry about that. Just been a crazy last month or so for me. But with this show, I think I'm probably gonna do it a little different. I don't think I'm gonna air this one publicly on YouTube, since I think today I'm just gonna kind of go through my lineup building process. Try to help you guys out a little bit. Maybe see if y'all can pick up on a few things that I'm doing, or might make more sense of some things I explain on the video. So maybe Monday I can get back to just the normal, going through Plate IQ, going through lineups, and putting that out on YouTube. But I'll probably just keep this one private. That way I can show everything. The only reason I don't show a lot of this on the public YouTube is a lot of this is behind paywalls and things I've subscribed for, and since I don't work for Roto Grinders, I don't want to be showing their their private tools out publicly. So I don't want to get in any kind of trouble there. So I think if we just keep this private, then it shouldn't be no big deal. But I think I'm just going to walk through my entire process from start to finish. It might take 15 minutes, it might take an hour, but we can just go through it, and you guys might pick up on a few things. If you don't subscribe to these sites, there's plenty of other sites that do stuff similar. If you only subscribe to part of something that I'm going through, that's where videos, whether it's myself or one of these other sites that put out free videos, maybe something like that can help you kind of bridge the gap. But really just kind of go through the process. So if you haven't been following, I had a $14,000 win, I think, about 2.5 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, from this Friday. That was a huge win. And then last night I had third place in the 250 and the 121. And I do all my lineups this way. I've been doing it this way for years. So hopefully it just helps you out. So all right, let's just get started. We kind of walk through my process. Like I said, if there's a part of this that you don't subscribe to, that's fine. If another site does it a little differently, that's fine. Or if you need to bridge a gap with some other analysis or something like that, a lot of these things are redundant, so you really don't have to have everything. So every day, start off with the weather report, just like we do on the show. This is free, but really looks like the only thing we have to worry about is St. Louis and KC. We can give a quick look. This is Roto Grinders Lineup HQ Builder, if you don't know. With the bat projections loaded in. It looks like for St. Louis and KC, we're looking at Wainwright and Zerpa, so we don't care about pitchers there anyway. So we'll just have to check back and see if Roth thinks this game has any risk, if the batters are at risk at all for being postponed. So other than that, looks good. Next, I go to Weather Edge. This is a Roto Grinders subscription, not the bat subscription. This is the Roto Grinders MLB subscription. This information is out there. It's built into the bat anyway. So if you pay for the bat projections, it's already in there. So I try not to double count with this stuff, but it is good just to know in the background. Let's see. Our first game is Washington, so this will be our game. So this is just what they use to kind of show what similar weather patterns have done in this ballpark in the past. You could say, it's obvious. So, it's 86 degrees, 5-mile-an-hour wind blowing out. Of course, it's a bump to home runs, bump to runs, and a decrease in ERA. So some of it's self-explanatory, but it's still just nice to see. Like this one, Phillies actually in 209 games, it's actually kind of a negative weather game, which I wouldn't suspect with 82 degrees, 5-mile-per-hour wind blowing out the right. It's not end all be all, but it's just a good reference point. A little bit of bump in Pittsburgh, but this is relative to the park. So Pittsburgh getting a bump is still not an amazing hitting park. It's still Pittsburgh. You kind of take it for what it's worth. A little bit of bump at Boston, here in New York, basically just a neutral game. A little bit of bump in Chicago. That any bump in Chicago is good because it's already a hitter's park. Here in Kansas City, 92 degrees, so we'll have to follow that one. And then LA, you can see 70 degrees, even with the wind blowing out. Cooler day in LA is a downgrade for hitters. And then San Francisco, a little bit of a bump to the hitters there, but I mean, I usually don't play this park anyway, just with, I mean, it's 60 degrees. I don't really care too much. Okay, so with that being said, I would expect that some of our stacks are going to come from probably Kansas City if that game plays, maybe the Brewers. We might get some Tigers, Red Sox, and then this top game here. So with that being said, these, like I said, these things are already built into the projections. So it's more of explaining what we're going to see as opposed to like to changing the projections, if that makes sense. So we can go to the stack page now. I have it just sorted by ceiling points. So you can see here the Brewers versus Kopech. Kopech's kind of up or down, but with the weather we saw in Chicago, it kind of makes sense that we see kind of a bump to the Brewers, kind of a bump to the Cardinals as well. The Reds are, against Oviedo, maybe getting a slight bump. So it just kind of helps explain what we're seeing here. So one thing here with this stack page, this is actually a bat subscription. I know Stochastic has something similar. Several other sites, have something along the same lines. But what I like to do is sort it by points, ceiling or points. The order of it really won't change. But then kind of look at the ownership column. So just going down the ownership multiplication here, you can kind of see, and looking at the ceiling points as well, Braves are going to be getting a decent amount of ownership. Padres look like they're under-owned compared to the teams around them, but the point per dollar kind of makes sense, but they might still be a little under-owned. These three teams here, Brewers, Cardinals, Dodgers, seem to kind of follow in line with their points. I would say that, those teams are probably accurately owned. This next group, Blue Jays, Astros, Reds, look like they might be kind of under-owned, kind of this second tier. The Royals are coming in as one of the top value plays, 6.43 point per dollar. That explains that ownership. They might be a little over-owned, but it might make sense just with how cheap they are, that they show up a lot. And once we kind of get down here, these teams I may or may not play. I mean, we're kind of, you're kind of coming off the top half on such a big slate. I'll probably end up on one of these top half teams. You can kind of see like the A's, for whatever reason, kind of getting decent ownership. Pirates are like they're kind of over-owned. Just no reason for a team down here to be to have any type of ownership. So that's just trying to help us like understand what we might see once we start building. I expect we'll see a ton of Royals just with that point per dollar once we start building. The Brewers might show up a little bit, and then if we get any cheap pitching, Braves, Padres, possibly Cardinals might start showing up a little bit. All right, so now let's go over to lineup HQ. Now that we kind of we're not too worried about weather anywhere. We'll have to check back on the KC game if it plays. Other than that, we're not too worried. There's no like Wrigley win game or anything. So with that being said, now I'll kind of go to this stack page here. I'll only really play 5 stacks. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and check every one of these. My favorite is 5-2. I'll put that at like 60%. I'll put 5-3 at 40%. And I'll put the 5X at like 50%. If it goes over 100, it's not a big deal. It'll just build the best within that. But that way there's some flexibility in the build. With that being said, that's already checked. We should be good to go. Let me do build rules real quick. I can show you what my settings are for there. For this, let's just do it all just straight, no randomness. Just show us what the calculator spits out with nothing else in there. We do 250. I don't care about exposure. Let's just see what it spits out. So this is what I kind of like to do, especially in the morning. Do salary, just leave it at 48,000. Let's see. Yeah, I can leave those checks. I'm never going to play a batter against my pitcher unless it's a very extreme circumstance. So let's just see what it spits out, and we'll go from there. Yeah, 50 lineups, and we'll just go for it. So this is more just like a see what shows up thing. I haven't changed like any ownership, anything like that. I just want to see what the bat's spitting out. Of course, this is at 9:45 or 9:48 Eastern is the most recent update. So things are going to change throughout the day. But this is just try to get an idea of what we're going to see. I mean, it looks like we're going to get a lot of Lance Lynn, probably Verlander, and then maybe like Castillo, Morton, Snell, maybe mixed in a little bit. So let's just see what shows up. So looks like we're getting almost 50 or 100% Lynn and Verlander combo. Ton of Brewers against Kopech, which we kind of expected we'd see a little bit. Might see some Royals. Yeah, Brewers, Royals, Diamondbacks. Mostly all Brewers though. So with that being said, so we know like yeah, we're probably gonna see a lot of Brewers. Um, what I like to do now is I'll go to the stack. So we know like if it had its preference, it's gonna give us as many Brewers as we want. But now what I do is I'll come in here and I can set it to like 25% max. Well, the slate this big, let's do 20. That way it'll give us guaranteed at least 5 different teams. So you can see the Brewers are capped at 20%. So then it's probably gonna go to the Royals 20%, and then like the Diamondbacks showed up. But this is more like okay, the Brewers are probably gonna be high on because they're so popular, and that's what it's spitting out. Let me just force a few different teams in there and see what shows up. And I do select this use team max exposure, just so it applies these like 5.3, 5.2, 5x equally across this. Let's just build 50 again. See what happens. Looks like it's going to be a lot of Lynn Verlander. I bet if, like, in my mind, looking at this, we probably shouldn't play Lynn, Verlander, and the Brewers. I think those three things together are going to be too high owned. So we'll probably have to pivot off one of those. But maybe with this new build, we'll see if it's trying to give us a different picture with the Brewers, or if it's giving us a different stack with the pitchers. So let's see what shows up. Looking to see if the umpires were updated yet on a Friday. It's a new umpiring crew, so they're not updated yet, but that will be in here when it comes in. So okay, now we can see stack summary. So yeah, so it capped the Brewers, Royals, and Cardinals. Then after that, it mixed in A's, Pittsburgh Reds, Blue Jays, and Red Sox. So I think it still was mainly Lynn Verlander. Yeah, Lynn 100% Verlander, all but one. So it's going to be hard to get off those pitchers, which is fine if we play them, but we just have to understand that and play a lesser on stack if we go there. So what I do now is we have 50 lineups. I want to see if the lineup HQ is able to build non-Brewers lineups that stack up. What I'm looking at now is this projected ownership 162.26 and the projected points 124.24. So this lineup below has less ownership, so it's okay that it has less points. So we can go down to the next lineup. So look at these two compared. Lineup 2 here was 154.43 for 122.98. This lineup below it, lineup 3, actually has more ownership for less points. So there's no reason to play this lineup. I don't even care who's in it. I'm not even looking at the players. But it has higher projected ownership for less points, so I'm not interested. So I'll hit the X, and I'm gonna go rapid fire, but that's all I'm doing. I'm looking at ownership. They're already sorted by points, so I don't have to check that column. I'm just checking every lineup has to be below 154.43 for me to consider it. All right, 151 for less points, so this would be a respectable lineup. It's less ownership for less points, so let's go down. 142, I'm good with that one. 146, X that one out. So there's ways to do this. You don't have to have lineup HQ. You can, even if you don't have an optimizer, I mean, you can do this just kind of through what we're talking about. You know, just using tools that are publicly available. At this point in the season's almost over. You could probably pay for like a month subscription to the bat or to RG. The bat will give you access to lineup HQ. You just won't get like Weather Edge and some of the other stuff. I'm just still going down. Anytime the projected ownership is less, then we're good moving down. We're really just trying to get through all 50 of these lineups. Down 50 is kind of the sweet spot. Anything more than that, and you're kind of getting like too down in the weeds. I mean, we're gonna want to play something that shows up in the top 50. 132. Looks like the A's are kind of showing up a good bit, which is interesting, but having them in Washington makes sense. It's a big park upgrade for them. So like I'm not gonna manually go and bump up the A's, but I use like the weather and things like that to help just understand why they're showing up, if that makes sense. So of course the A's, they play in the worst pitchers or the biggest pitchers park. They're going into Washington. I mean, you would expect that that's a little bit of a bump, but the prices are probably, still super cheap, and we're able to pay up for other pitchers, and I bet Acuna's in some of those lineups and, things like that. All right. Did notice something, but we will come back to that. 11, let's try to get through these. 110, and 24 is out. 3. Okay, so I did notice something as we were coming down that I'll kind of use. So we have 14 lineups left. Let me scroll back up a little bit. Okay, so look at all these lineups. 119, 119, 118, 112. So there's kind of a pretty like clear dividing line. Like there's a big jump. You know what I mean? Like before this, we were going down like a half a point, like every lineup, which is understandable because it is, less ownership. So it should be a little bit less points. But now we're getting down here where there's a large drop in points for, less than 10% ownership drop. So what I'll do here, that's kind of my bottom line. I'm not going to give up, because you're basically giving up points for less ownership. So with that being said, I'm not going to sacrifice 6 projected points just to go down a little bit in ownership. So I think this is where I would draw my line. I could just hit delete all builds below and go from there. So we're down to 9. So just first cut, I would consider any of these 9 lineups playable. I would consider any of them good lineups. The top one I probably won't play. I'd probably exit out as well, because there's going to be hundreds of people that open the bat, run the best 5 stack they can get, and they'll submit it. And so if you play a single entry contest, I guarantee you will see this lineup in there. So I'll probably stay away from that one specifically, just to get it out of the way. We can exit out as well. So yeah, so I mean, like this right here, I mean, y'all know I'll play Royals or I'll play Wit any day. This right here I would consider a respectable lineup. It is Verlander Lynn with Brewers, so you have to understand that it might be kind of high owned, but it does project well, and it was a pretty significant ownership drop. This one here, if you wanted to get off Brewers, I really like this one. Looks like, what do we end up with? So after all of this, cutting it down, yeah, only 1 Brewers lineup. So you can kind of see just how high owned those Brewers lineups were. We actually end up with Oakland, Pittsburgh, 3 lineups each. So I think, any combination of them. This one's I really like this one here. You get a couple of the Pittsburgh, which, like I said, I don't love full stacking in that park. So I would tend to more the 2-man like this. KC and that 90-degree weather, you just have to make sure that game plays. But right now, at this point, we're not worried about that. And then you're getting the expensive one-off, like I said, with Tatis. So that one would be okay. This one, Oakland with a 5-3 or 5-1 with 3 one-offs. You really have to nail these one-offs. I tend to favor like the 5-2 or the 5-3s. I probably wouldn't play this one. So as I go through, let's just X that one out. Kind of talk myself off of it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to play Cabrian Hayes, Adames, and Tatis's one-offs. You really have to just have home runs for all 3 of them, which is fine. I mean, it can certainly happen. This I wouldn't mind playing Olsen as a one-off as opposed to Hayes. Kind of like having Hayes in that stack. So I could see getting to this one with the 3 one-offs before I could see getting to this one. So let's go ahead and X this one out as well. I do like that one here. If we do go Pirates, I think something like that would be good. So let me go ahead and star that one, and I'll start this one as well. Okay, so those are kind of the 2 lineups I'm leaning towards right now. I'm going down. I'm not playing a Matt Vierling one-off. I don't know. I mean, his upside, he can hit a homer, but he's just not one of those guys that has like 2 homer upside. He could get a homer and a stolen base or something, but he's kind of one of those guys that needs, the whole team to kind of rally to have a good day. So I'm probably out on that as well. I think the wind was out to right in Fenway, so if it was out to left, might be a boost to him as well, but I'm probably going to be out on that one. This is interesting. It looks like it's the exact same lineup, just with if the Pirates are the same. Davis, McCutchen, Triola Hayes. Yeah, so this is the exact same lineup. It's just Tucker instead of Tatis. So I can keep that in there if Tatis gets a lot of ownership, or if you just prefer Tucker. This would be something I might go to Plate IQ and just check and see. Tucker's been really hot lately, so I wouldn't mind playing him. So either one of those lineups would be fine if I went Pittsburgh. Do I have any other lineups? One more. This is the same lineup, just with Carroll instead of Tucker, or Tatis being the third lineup with the same thing. I'd rather just prefer one of the other two guys. Carroll's super low owned, but I think Pittsburgh will be low owned enough. There's no reason to like pay all the way down or go all the way down to a different one off there. So I'll probably exit that one. So we can favorite this one. So really got down to 3 lineups. Looks like one KC lineup with the 2 Pirates and Tatis. I don't mind that. Then with as much as the bat likes Tatis, I'll probably just stick with him and forego Tucker. Tucker's kind of like Carroll, where the Pirates are low enough that I don't really have to go down to the less projected. I mean, Tatis is projected almost 2 points better than Tucker, so I'll just stick with Tatis there. So I mean, if I did this close to the log with lineups made with the ownership ready and all that, I could see myself going with one of these 2 lineups. All right, so now let's say, and if you want to stop there, then that's perfectly fine. There's no reason to go any further. With that being said, though, let's see if we can get any other pitchers. That's the only problem. I mean, look at the gap here. There's a reason we're only getting Verlander and Lynn. Castillo would be in there, but I mean, a little bit but he's expensive and against Baltimore. So it makes sense why we're getting these 2 pitchers. I mean, look at this gap. Snell 16, Morton 16, Barrios 16. If these guys were all like in the 18 range, I would, try to put a few caps on to just see what other pitchers show up. One thing you can do is just set like Lynn at max 40. We'll do Verlander at max 40 and just see what other lineups we get. We can do that real quick and kind of step through. So we still have the stack type at like 20% per team. So we should get some different variations here. And we'll just see if how those lineups compare. But yeah, there's no reason to do more than this. If you're paying for the subscription stuff, if you're paying for the bat, it already has the weather factored in. It already has the umpires factored in. It already has the park factored in. It already has all those things factored in. So using those tools just help you understand why the projections are what they are. And with myself, like looking on the normal shows I do, I'm looking at it as a, like, you're not paying for any subscriptions. Let me help you, get on Lance Lynn because Colorado has a 30% K rate or something as a team. So those are the things I'm trying to show in the video. And like I said, with this being kind of showing all the things that I pay for, and I don't want to air this out publicly. Just I don't know how all that works with showing my subscriptions. But like I said, all these things, if you have, like, you don't have to have the bat. RG has projections that are fine, and this will do it good enough. You don't have to pay for RG. You could only pay for the bat because the weather edge is already factored in. If you're on Stochastic or something like that, then they already have that stuff figured out. So, so many sites do similar stuff that you can kind of make it work. So you can see here, once we cap Lynn and Verlander, we get a lot of Castillo, Stripling, Morton. We get a variation. We're just going to do the same thing over again. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out the top lineup, just because, like I said, I'm never going to play the top lineup because it will be duped. So it's not going to happen. So we'll start here with this 153.23 and just work our way down. See what stacks we're getting, if we're getting anything different. Similar, looks like I might have one Brave lineup in here. We'll see how that compares. One thing you can do is, I kind of like to do, is I'll hit the stack tab as I'm exiting these out, and you can kind of see what's disappearing and what's staying in there. It really wants to give us these A's, which, I mean, if that's where we end up, that's where we end up. But I have to see. So we're still looking for that drop off again. All these points are relatively close. I'm okay with, finding less ownership. But yeah, there's a big drop off there. 121 to 112. Massive drop off in projection though, which means we probably finally got off Lynn and Verlander, I would assume, which is what it looks like. But we'll just keep this going for a little bit. I mean, if you're playing more than one lineup, then don't be afraid to, power through that ownership drop and play some of these stacks down here, because as long as everything's like relative to each other, then I would still consider it playable. Yeah, like this one's still a pretty good lineup or ownership drop. I mean, you're just giving up too much projection in like a single entry tournament to play this lineup here. I mean, it's what, almost 15 points less than our top lineup. I probably wouldn't go there, but these are all playable lineups. Like I said, just following the projections or the projected ownership, making sure everything just stays in line. Let me do we have left. 7, 81, 65. Okay, yeah. Now we're definitely too far. I mean, we're almost 20 points below. There's another gap here, 106 to 101. So yeah, we can just go ahead and exit these out. And then yeah, this 97, we're certainly not playing. I might exit out this one as well. I don't believe I'll end up here. I mean, you're taking a 5-man stack against Snell, and you're fading the top pitchers. I mean, if you're stacking against Snell, you might as well just play Lynn and Verlander. I mean, because no one else is going to have the Diamondbacks at this point. So, all right, we can leave these other ones in here though. You can see it's kind of the same teams. There's a few different, few more Brewers lineups in here. I bet because it's given us different pitchers. You can kind of see if you do want to play Brewers, if you're just dead set on them being the best stack, there are ways to play them, but you're going to have to get off Verlander and Lynn. So the Stripling Castillo lineup, I would consider it playable. And what I did here is I just sorted on just the Milwaukee 5-mans. This lineup here, Morton Castillo with Brewers. So when I say like, oh, you can play, like when I'm doing the show or something, and I'll say, Lynn Verlander is fine, but I probably wouldn't play him with Brewers. You can see on our last build that we did, we had very few Brewers lineups just because we're getting so much Lynn Verlander that the projected ownership compared to points didn't line up. This one was one of the top owned ones. It's probably too high owned for me to play. So we'll just kind of start here and go down. Now, I will say, if you're playing something like 100-man or less or something like that, just play something like this. I mean, the upside of a lineup like this is so good that if you're playing such a small tournament, I know like some of the single entries are like 120 people or something. Like that would be a perfectly fine lineup, but I'd play more for like the 500-mans. So I'd be looking at something like this. But when I say like, oh, if you fade the top pitchers, you can play whoever you want. This is kind of what I mean. You make a change at pitcher and you can fit in the Brewer stack. Let's go ahead and favor that, and I'll just show how that compares to the other lineups. I don't think anything else here that really stood out. Let's go back to the top. Well, I'm going to favor that one. That's a kind of a different KC lineup. Yeah, I'm really not feeling the A's. If it was a 5-2 or 5-3 with the A's, that'd be fine. But I really don't like these 3 one-offs with the A's. I think I'm probably going to be out. So, okay, so I favorited a few more lineups. Let's go just to the favorite page and figure out what we have there. Okay, so this is sorted by points, no filters. So the top lineup is this KC lineup, I think from build 1. It's like, yeah, we have 2 KC lineups up top. Either one of them would be fine. This is just where it comes down to preference. Let's say we have Joe and Hayes with a Tatis one-off, and this is Hayes McCutchen with Goldschmidt. If this game gets canceled, obviously you can go with this one, or well, the KC's in that game as well. So obviously you're assuming this game's going to play. So with that being said, Goldschmidt might be a fine play in this spot. But this is where I might look at plate IQ and be like, well, is it worth going with Joe? Is it worth going with McCutchen? What about Goldschmidt? And you kind of, look at, the finer details there. But either lineup's fine. I mean, you're really, you're making such a such a small decision that it's it's going to even out in the long run. These two lineups are basically projected the same. So either one of those two would be fine. This Pittsburgh lineup again, you can see a pretty significant drop in ownership. So I wouldn't mind going here, especially if I think KC is going to get popular. I could see going here. Like I said though, Pittsburgh at home, that's just tough to play. That's a tough park for a team to really pop off. We can see who's pitching for Cincinnati. Where's Pittsburgh? Yeah, they're pretty low down. Yeah, Abbott. I don't know. The more I look at it, the less likely I am to play Pittsburgh, I think. And then this lineup here, you can see huge drop off in points. But if we want to get Milwaukee, the bat suggests these are the pitchers we do it with. Stripling against the Rangers sounds terrible. So, like I said, the bigger the contest, the more you kind of have to go down. I mean, if you're playing multiple lineups, you could unfavorite this one, play all three of these. If you're playing three lineups, I mean, this is a good mix. You're getting Verlander, Lynn in two lineups paired with a KC stack and a Pittsburgh stack, and then you're getting off those with the chalky Brewers. And, any one of these three would be fine. And like I said, I'll do this again closer to lock, 5:30, once the lineups get in, and just kind of see. You can mess around with it. I mean, feel free. I mean, you could come in here and say, I'm not playing Lance Lynn no matter what. I know he's going to be 80% owned in single entries. Just X them out and build 50 again and just see how they compare. There's nothing wrong with that, and build as many as you want. And just play with it. If you want to I want to see what a Corbin Burnes lineup looks like. I'd lock Corbin Burnes and just hit build 50. See what that looks like. So I mean, this is just things I play around with. If I think Burnes might be getting less ownership than he should, and I'll just lock him in, build 50, and see how it compares point wise and projection wise. So it's going to spit out the best possible Corbin Burnes lineup that it can build, and we can see if that's better or worse than what we currently have. So we can do this real quick and kind of wrap it up. So like I said, hopefully you can get back on a normal schedule, get back to the normal videos, just kind of going through Plate IQ, going through some thoughts of the stacks, or sometimes I might pull this up on the side and kind of look, but we'll kind of add my own bias in there, own thoughts into what people might build or what we might end up doing. Let's see. Okay. And these ownerships are based on like the big GPPs, so you will see Lynn and Verlander in single entry are probably going to be like 50 and 45% owned. So I might be more inclined to get off them and play one of the the best lineup I can without them. So this is the best Burnes lineup that we can build, and you can see it's 130 and 117. So let's just see how that compares. 130, 117. I'd be perfectly okay with that. You can see here, if I favorite this Burnes lineup, it actually slides right in line with these other lineups: 130, 151, 122, 136, 120, 130, 117, 103, 112. So this lineup actually kind of fits right in there, right in line with the other lineup. So this would be something I would consider as well. So feel free to force some guys in there and still see if it lines up. So now if we were doing something and see this 119 lineup, I would think that'd be okay. But let me just, for example, let's scroll down pretty far. Let me get down below 110 or so. Okay, we'll just do this lineup. So let's just look at this one. So let's just say this lineup popped up and we wanted to compare it to what we already had favorited from other builds. This was a 112, 112. You can see here basically the same point wise for not much ownership, or for way more ownership. So this would be something I wouldn't consider playing. What exactly the example I was looking for? Let me see if I can get a different one. hopefully this makes sense. Feel free to ask me questions about this if you don't fully get it, or if there's, if you only subscribe to part of this and, have questions about like, oh, well, I, got this far, but what I need to do, this actually at Washington lineup, we didn't see them show up, but, this one's fine, 99, 108. This would be something if I was doing, a bigger contest, I think it'd be okay. But yeah, I mean, once you get off Verlander or Lynn, you get open up to a lot of different lineups. So yeah, it's kind of neat. We're seeing several new teams, I feel like, once we put Burns in there, just because he's more expensive than Verlander, that we're going to get some of these cheaper stacks, I think. Go back up to the top. So yeah, so I guess what you could do is like you build the Burns build and just go through again, and just, like I said, you could do this as few or as many times as you want, and just use this to kind of find good lineups. If you're playing like 20, maybe make a few different changes, maybe find like 3 to 5 from each build and put them in there. If you're only playing one, you just have to accept there's gonna be some nights you pick the wrong lineup. It's, oh man, the Pirates went off, that was the other one I was considering. It's just part of it sometimes. Just have to know that the lineup you chose, was still a positive, positive EV choice, and it just didn't work out in this spot. But it's just part of playing one lineup. You gotta pick right on that night. See if we got anything else. Right. Looks like with Burns, we're actually getting a lot more of these like middle of the ground lineups. With Verlander, it was like all or nothing, it felt like. I think that was because it was trying to keep Lynn and Verlander paired together. So once they're like 40% ended, it just like dropped them both instead of like giving us one or the other. So maybe what you could do, if I had more time, I might like X Lynn and run 50 with just no restrictions, just no Lynn, and then I might X Verlander and put Lynn back in and run 50 with just Verlander out, and kind of see. That way you can kind of get like one or the other. Well, it looks like we got a lot more of these like 115, 114 type lineups once we exited one of them out. Or once basically by locking Burns, it was Burns Lynn on every lineup. So that is interesting. Whereas before lineup HQ, it was giving us, I don't know if y'all remember, we went from like 118 to 112 because it was either Verlander and Lynn together or like neither of them. So I think playing one of them might actually be better, and that might actually be where I ended up. I really like this lineup here. I mean, y'all know I'll play the Royals. We're still getting Hayes. The bat loves Pittsburgh, so I don't mind playing Hayes. So something like that would be really good. Getting this would be good. Pittsburgh 2-man, I like that. So I think that's more likely what I'll do now that I see it. I'd feel more confident playing like Lynn or Verlander with one of these other guys. And it doesn't even have to be Burns. It could be Charlie Morton. It could be Blake Snell. It could be Luis Castillo. I think what I would do, I'll probably end the video here soon, but what I would do next is I would X Lynn, run 50, do the, kind of filter through them and see what's left, and kind of find something in that kind of 115, 118 point range, but still, make sure the projected ownership, is kind of stair-stepping down as we go. And then I would exit Verlander, which is probably more likely going to be the better lineups just with Lynn's insane projection. I'll put Lynn back in the player pool and run it again. So we probably won't end up with Burns, would be my guess, because he's 11K. It'll probably be Morton or Castillo, especially with Morton's ownership at 8%. So I think that'd be fine. And, go from there. You'll end up with maybe like 5 or 6 favorited lineups. And then that's where, something we talked about, or, you can kind of use, if you think there's something that the projections aren't accounting for, you can make a choice there. If you think this pitch count is too high for Morton, if you think the Mets are pesky and he's not gonna get that much, well then maybe favor one of the Castillo or Burns or Snell lineups instead of a Morton lineup, or little things like that. But if you went through that process for a few different builds and you ended up with 5 lineups, I would consider any of those 5 playable, and after that it's just kind of personal preference. So I hope this helps. Like I said, these are a few different subscriptions here. Well, mainly everything here is the bat. So if you want to just pay for like a month of the bat, or if you do have the bat and you don't know how to use it correctly, this page and the stack page are the bat. So there's that. With the RG subscription, you get this, which, like I said, it's already built in, but it's just nice to know. It's like, why are we getting so much A's? It's like, well, this is why. It's a good hitting weather day in Washington, so it explains it. One other page here that's helpful, I know Stochastic does this as well. It's kind of like the stack page. You can kind of see ownership, so you can sort by field, and you can see, it thinks Dodgers, Brewers are going to be the most popular. But then there's also this winter tab where it'll tell you like who kind of are best leverage teams. Looks like KC is actually, it thinks KC will be under-owned. It thinks Toronto will be under-owned. Dodgers, even with high, it thinks they're not high enough. Astros, Tigers, Brewers. I think, in my mind, I think Brewers are probably going to be negative leverage just because the bat likes them so much. The bat does carry a lot of weight on how things shake out. Looks like Pittsburgh is kind of a negative lineup. But looking at this, I mean, this updates as the days goes too. So I kind of like to see where, like, this is RG based, where RG and the bat might kind of overlap. Looks like they kind of both agree on Kansas City. RG thinks Milwaukee's a good stack as well. But like I said, I was kind of leaning out on Oakland. RG really doesn't like Oakland, so I would probably kind of just confirm there that I'm most likely out. Pittsburgh, I think, was okay. RG's neutral on them, but I think the bat really likes them. So little things like that you can use if you pay for these tools. If you don't pay for RG, these are the kind of things I try to talk about on the show. I might say, hey, I think Toronto's in a good spot. They're probably going to be under-owned. I'm not looking at this, but it's just kind of, as we go through, you can kind of pick up on things, you know what I mean? So that's where I'll try to help. Is, KC, they're in a great spot, but they're not owned enough. It's just, little things like that is what I'm trying to convey. Just using my own bias, but it is kind of falls in line with some of these other tools. So if you don't have a subscription, I would recommend just getting the bat monthly. Just try it for the rest of August and see how it goes. If you don't want to do any of that, nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of optimizers and things like that out there. You can do some of this by hand, even if you're just building the lineup, and at least like what I'm talking about. During the show when I say you can't play Lynn and Verlander together with the Brewers, you just kind of saw that just with how high owned that combination was. But once you fade Verlander, Lynn with any of these guys in the Brewers is perfectly acceptable. So hopefully that helps kind of explain some of that, and it makes more sense now. So like I said, I'm probably not going to publish this just since I go through a lot of the like actual projections for tonight. These are the August 11th projections. They're subject to change a little bit just with lineups coming out, umpires getting confirmed, things like that. The lineups shown here may or may not be good tonight. I don't know. I'm probably gonna log off here and not check back until like 4:30, and start making lineups there and see what's changed, and just kind of go from there. But this is what I do every day. You can do it in 10 minutes, you can do it in 40, however much effort you want to put into it. But you're paying for these tools, so feel free to use them, and just trust that what they're using in the background, and that they're based on good projections. So with that being said, hope that helps everybody. Let me know if you have any questions. We can just talk about it in Discord or something like that. You can share the link with your friends or something if they're interested as well, or you can invite them to the Discord. It really doesn't matter. But like I said, I'm probably not going to put anything on Twitter about this, just because I'm just going to keep this a private video. So all right, hope that helps everybody. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you at the top.